We had a great Hawkeye caucus in Des Moines this week, and I want to say thank you to everybody who attended and participated in that, and I was particularly honored by the resolution in the Senate. It was touching for me and a very emotional moment, and thanks again to all of those who made that possible. I want to turn to just a couple of subjects, so I'm really focusing now on my priorities for these last few months. And so what I want to talk about this morning are just a few things that touch on those priorities. But before I get immediately into the priorities, something that I was able to do last week that was a great deal of fun and a proud moment for me was to be able to go to the Sweet 16 with our women's basketball team. And I love to share little pieces of trivia about our student athletes in particular, because I think they're a group that is worth bragging about. You know, Iowa was one of only 15 schools in the country that had its football team participate in a bowl game, and both its men and women's basketball teams go to the NCAA tournaments. We also had our wrestling team. Now, they weren't pleased, obviously, to finish second. That's not up to their high standards, but certainly a great accomplishment on their part. We're also the only school in the country to have more than one student athlete that was named an academic All-American, and in fact we had 3. And to be able to watch Samantha Logic and Allie Disterhoff participate in the Sweet 16, and of course Mike Cassell on the men's side, these were sweet moments, I think, for our players as well as for those of us who care deeply about this institution. We're one of only 8 schools nationally to have our football team, our men's basketball team, and our women's basketball team rank in the top 25 when it comes to attendance. And in terms of attendance, we're number 1 when it comes to wrestling attendance. That should surprise no one. We have great fans when it comes to all of these sports, but certainly Iowa's wrestling program continues to be strong when it comes to those who watch, and we're pleased about that. And then finally, for me, the thing that makes this a very sweet moment is the graduation rates of our student athletes. We established new school records for graduation rates when the NCAA reported back in October a federal graduation rate of 78% for our student athletes and a graduation success rate of 89%. I'm hoping we can crack that 90% mark on the graduation success rate. And with a men's basketball team that has a 100% graduation success rate, I think we're well on our way to continuing to make progress there. Now, how does that compare to our peers? We are certainly significantly better in many cases than our peers, 12 and 17% better on average than our peers when it comes to the federal rate and the graduation success rate, and the best in the state, and we're pleased about that. So from my perspective, you can always continue to win more games, and we strive to do that, but the whole idea of win, graduate, and do it right, I think makes tremendous sense and is being lived in a very, very strong way here at Iowa. And I'm very pleased about that. My congratulations go to our youngsters. I call them youngsters only because I'm so much older than they are. They're hardly youngsters, but certainly Samantha Logic, Mike Cassell, and Allie Disterhoff on the academic All-American status is a very special designation. Allie continues to make all kinds of lists for her both athletic and academic accomplishments, and as a hometown, homegrown student athlete, it's a lot of fun to see. So, TIER continues to be one of my priorities as we move closer and closer to my imminent retirement, and certainly becoming as efficient as we can be. This is Earth Month, and it was 8 years ago now that I announced the sustainability initiatives for the campus, and those have continued to grow and thrive on campus. But among the many things that we're doing to generate efficiencies was the early retirement program, and I've been asked about the early retirement program. So let me just give you the update on where we are on that. There were 1,400 people that were eligible to apply for early retirement. We had a little over 360 apply. A little less than 200 were approved. I think 197 were approved. And over 5 years, this will generate a total savings of $28 million for the institution. And if we just look at the General Education Fund, that's the appropriations dollars. That includes the appropriations dollars. We will save $16 million over 5 years from this particular early retirement program. So I'm pleased at that outcome. It's something that we'll obviously report to the board when we next meet, and I will be happy to share with Regent McKibben the success that we're having on this front. I know he is watching carefully, and we're happy to be able to have some good news on that front. Other initiatives, other tier initiatives are moving along well. I hear from the people on campus who are working closely with these things that we continue to make good progress on all fronts of the tier initiatives that are in play at the moment. The academic piece is just getting started, so that one's, it's a little too soon to know how that's going to go. And then finally, enrollment being a top priority for my final few months, and certainly a top priority for the institution going forward. We're watching this very closely. Applications are up, as I've said. Admissions are up, as I've said. But the latest figures for this week, what we're starting to look at now are acceptances. These are people who have accepted and said they're coming. And what we're seeing is total acceptances are up over 14% over last year. And among resident students, they're up by 13.5%, and non-residents and international students are up 15%. The average comes out to a little over 14%. We are thrilled. I am thrilled by the progress that we're making here. Brent Gage got started in the middle of the year, and when Brent has a whole year to work his magic on the enrollment numbers, I suspect that there'll be even more good news in the future. But what we're seeing right now looks great, and we're attracting a really terrific mix of students. We're seeing significant increases, 12% increases in both underrepresented populations and honors-eligible students. So this has been happening since yesterday, by the way, with the phone ringing in here when it rings out there. Sorry about that. But the mix of students tells me that, once again, we're going to be welcoming the largest, the most diverse, and the most talented freshman class that we've ever seen at the University of Iowa. So not only is it continuing in terms of growth of numbers overall, but in terms of the kinds of quality indicators that we're looking for, we're seeing big increases in those too. So very pleased about that. People are asking me, our alums are asking me, so what's driving this? Obviously, concerted effort. We're making a lot more effort to get the word out about the University of Iowa. But it helps when, and I mentioned, I went through in great detail at the last Regents meeting, the impressive increases in rankings that we saw recently with U.S. News and World Report, where law, education, and business all went up significantly. Engineering and medicine have held their own and have done well on the rankings. And that we hear a lot from people who are looking to the University of Iowa for their educational opportunities about the quality of education being a big factor, as well as affordability. So keeping it affordable and keeping it high quality are priorities that will continue to be important to all of us. So these are my topics, my 3 topics for today. I'm happy to answer questions that any of you might have on other topics. What's on your mind?